This way.
Stay close and follow my orders.
Back in July, Ghost of Tsushima released to thunderous applause by players all around the world, especially Japanese PlayStation 4 owners who were shocked to experience such an enthralling, high-budget, historically inspired title created by an American studio. It drew many favorable comments from a lot of native Japanese folks over there, including the creator of the Yakuza series, Toshihiro Nagoshi, who heaped an incredible amount of praise onto it. In a Sega Nama stream soon after the game's launch, he stated, "We definitely lost to them. I think it's a game that definitely should have been made by Japanese people, but I heard they did a monstrous job collecting data and everything." There's also the Kurosawa mode, showing how they tried to pursue an artistic movie feel with the game overall. It's the kind of work made by non-Japanese people that makes you feel they're even more Japanese than us. I think it's amazing. We often believe Western people would never get certain Japanese things, but the game shows this way of thinking is wrong in the first place. Personally, I love the game as well. In my review, I shamelessly gushed about the awe-striking graphics and art style, the intuitive and in-depth photo mode, the investing stance-based combat that gives you tons of tools to use whenever you want, the blazing fast load times, and the story, which starts off a bit slow, but grows to become very emotionally resonant. The only real complaints I had were about the general mission structure that adhered to a lot of the same footprint-following procedures, and how the open world somewhat falls into the same icon collecting formula as, say, Ubisoft games do. However, thanks to its gorgeous visuals and satisfying and balanced gameplay, Ghost of Tsushima still rises above the typical open world riffraff. Since then, a lot of people have been wondering about the future of the game, from PS5 support to the addition of New Game Plus. Sucker Punch was a bit quiet on that front for a while until they dropped a bomb. Ghost of Tsushima Legends, the new co-op multiplayer expansion which was to be released for free for owners of the game. It was an announcement that took a lot of people by surprise, as no one expected such a thing, especially considering how polished it looked. It drove the point home that Sucker Punch was ready and willing to commit to the game in more ways than one. Later came even more incredible news, the anticipated announcement of New Game Plus, which would add new content to the game, such as a new merchant, new charms, and a new horse. So people who want to play the game again can do so without restarting any progress on skills, upgrades, or discoveries. Together, both Legends and New Game Plus would be coming in one big update, and it's finally here. I gladly took this reason to go back to this fantastic game, so without any further ado, let's talk about it. First is the version 1.1 update that adds new features to the single-player experience. As you may expect, the differences are obvious from the get-go. Once you hit the main menu and select a save file to load, you can now see your total playtime in the file description, along with the difficulty you've been playing at. It's a tiny feature, yes, but a lot of people care about knowing the total number of hours they've spent on a game, especially if they really like it and feel as though they've sunk a lot of time into it. Beyond that, the New Game Plus option is now selectable in the main menu as well, and as the warning says, you can bring with you all of your unlocked skills and cosmetics. Unfortunately, you do not bring any currencies or crafting resources with you into New Game Plus. So don't expect to be able to farm for them before starting so you can immediately give your armor of choice the new upgrade level they get, because that's not happening. And yes, you heard right, all armor gets one additional upgrade level in New Game Plus, making them even better than they were at the end of your journey the first time. When you first start up New Game Plus, you're instantly dropped at the famously beautiful title sequence you see right after your fight with Khotan Khan on the bridge and are unceremoniously tossed off. This allows you to head straight into the open world with no need to re-experience the tutorial in the beginning. Furthermore, once you gain control of Jin, your literal first objective is to simply ride a stone's throw away to Baku the Voiceless, who is the brand new merchant in New Game Plus who sells you all kinds of goodies. You may wonder how many interesting items the game could possibly have to offer once your initial 30 to 40 hour story is completed the first time, and the answer is a fucking lot. Baku has a metric ton of awesome shit to give you, ranging from new outfits to dyes, charms, and masks. You're able to buy and wear Ryuzo's and Ishikawa's clothes, and the new armor dyes are significantly more bright and eye-catching than anything else you can grab in the regular new game. Some border on or even cross the boundary of gaudiness, but hey, fashion is ever changing, right? Charms are crazy too, and they vary wildly in terms of utility. Some charms are absolutely busted and help you decimate hordes of enemies without breaking a sweat. Some are actually curses that make the game harder, such as enemies killing you in one shot and disabling Iron Will, regardless of your health or defense. And one charm is purely cosmetic, the Charm of Carnage, which drastically increases the amount of blood enemies spray when you attack them. A must-have for Quentin Tarantino fans, I'm sure. Of course, all of this begs the question, how do I pay for these things? Am I going to have to grind for supplies or flowers or something? Now thankfully it's actually pretty straightforward. Baku requires a new type of currency called ghost flowers, and despite what you may assume, they're actually very plentiful. How? Well, it's pretty simple. Since this is New Game Plus and you've already received rewards for your activities before, if you do them again here, you get ghost flowers in lieu of the original rewards that you were given in the normal game. Meaning every mission or map activity you've completed in regular New Game means more opportunities to get ghost flowers in New Game Plus. The more thorough you were in clearing out content before, the more flowers you can save up and use to buy things from Baku. This is a fantastic and thoughtful system because not only does it encourage you to complete 100% of the game in your first playthrough, but it also rewards you appropriately for doing those same activities again. There's also the special New Game Plus horse that's given to you the instant you start, and you're able to name it one of the other two names you didn't use in your previous playthrough. It's a gorgeous looking animal with a black coat and bright red mane. Definitely a steed worthy of riding into a new, more challenging journey. As an added bonus and excellent quality of life addition that Sucker Punch knew to include, New Game Plus allows you to skip cutscenes. The lack of a cutscene skip wasn't a big deal in the normal game due to them being fairly brief on average, and the save system never forcing you to re-watch them if you die. But it could have easily been a feature that ended up overlooked. Thankfully, Sucker Punch is a lot sharper than that. Overall, New Game Plus offers a plethora of shiny, interesting content that makes replaying a great game even more worthwhile. Honestly, I'm shocked at how much thought was put into it. Most RPGs don't even offer a New Game Plus this good. It's doubly impressive when you realize Sucker Punch didn't even plan a New Game Plus update when the game launched. This is strictly a feature that exists in response to fans asking for it, and they went the extra 10 miles to give us an experience unlike any other in the open world action-adventure sphere. I'm actually fairly compelled to maybe finish the whole game again, which is a feeling very few New Game Plus modes give me. In most other games that offer it, I often stop a third, maybe even a quarter of the way in, because I don't sense any real change to my experience. A lot of developers simply toss in the mode for the sake of it without taking the opportunity to change things up, and I'm very happy Sucker Punch isn't one of them. If I have a single complaint about New Game Plus, it's the glitch that unfortunately forgets to bring your Platinum Trophy die into the mode with you. I even made a tweet the day before the update came out saying that I got the plat and was looking forward to bringing the die with me into New Game Plus, but that didn't happen. Fortunately, Sucker Punch has already acknowledged the bug and are working on a patch. Next is the new photo mode features, which are also included with this update. It likely goes without saying at this point, but Ghost of Tsushima's photo mode is fantastic. It offers many adjustment options and is extremely easy and intuitive to use. After just a few minutes of experimentation, you can start snapping jaw-dropping pictures without breaking a sweat. You might wonder how it could be possible to improve on it at all, and apparently Sucker Punch felt that there was quite a bit of room for it. There are several new key features that might see a lot of use among virtual photographers, including a sword glint which allows Jin's blade to shine regardless of where the light is coming from, the option to cover Jin in either mud or blood, and the ability to remove Jin from the shot entirely for those who wish to take a pure landscape photo or simply focus on something else that isn't him. There are also several new stamps to place on a picture, including a few that use a portrait orientation. When selecting cinema bars, there's now an extra aspect ratio, 32:9, for those who are aiming for extra stylization. Arguably the biggest new addition is the black-white contrast slider, which can now be used in tandem with the exposure bias to finally give total control over more than just brightness. With this contrast option, you can now set a greater difference between light and darkness without making the whole image brighter or darker, which would cause loss of crucial detail sometimes. People with real photography or graphic design experience will likely welcome this change with open arms. I know I do. And one last quality of life addition with this update is the ability to finally fast travel while on your horse. Until now, fast traveling would make you spawn at your destination on foot, requiring you to always whistle for your horse when you load in. Now, however, if you begin fast travel while mounted, you spawn mounted too. It's a tiny convenience, yes, but the seconds wasted calling for your ride every single time add up the more you play. As I said earlier, New Game Plus is very much worth experiencing, especially at a higher difficulty than what you may have played at, and the new photo mode features and quality of life alterations are very much welcomed. This would still be a fantastic update even if it only included these single player changes. Now, let's move on to the brand new co-op multiplayer mode, Legends. Starting Legends is a pretty simple and straightforward process. It comes packaged with the update itself, but to unlock it, you download what is basically a digital key from the PlayStation Store. When you start it up, either through single player or the main menu, you're shown a cutscene introducing Gyozen, the narrator, who gives a more mythical, fantastical point of view about the Mongol invasion, where the aggressors are painted as Oni who torture the land and its people. You're then introduced to the 4-player classes, Samurai, Hunter, Assassin, and Ronin. Each of them share global abilities with each other, like the grappling hook, bows, darts, and stealth kills, but they also have unique class abilities and ultimates. In the tutorial, you're able to play all of them to test them out and see which one you enjoy the most before you can commit to them by unlocking that class first. One of the most striking features of Legends is its general aesthetic. With its more mythologically inspired storytelling, the entire island of Tsushima is repainted to look straight out of an Eastern fantasy story. There are giant floating rocks, magic portals, spirits, possessed bodies, ghosts, a giant moon in the sky, weird fleshy growths in the environment, and an ever-present demonic aura permeating the land. If you've played Nioh before, you're already fairly familiar with it, though Legends does go the extra mile in some visual aspects. At the moment, there are 2 types of missions to partake in: 2-player story missions and 4-player survival missions. Story missions are exactly as they sound. They're objective-based tales narrated by Gyozen, telling the story of the Mongol invasion through his fantastical lens. Survival missions are also self-explanatory. You team up with 3 other players and attempt to survive 15 to 25 waves of increasingly difficult enemies. Both types of missions have 3 difficulty levels: Bronze, Silver, and Gold. Additionally, survival missions have bosses every 5 waves that have an extra mission modifier that makes the encounter even tougher. It's easy to start the game, invite a buddy, and immediately jump in and finish a mission or 2 without it feeling like a huge commitment. Unless you're playing Gold Survival, in which case you'll be in there for a hot minute. The strength of your character and build is measured with Ki, which is basically your gear level. For each mission you complete, you're given new gear of varying levels of rarity, and as you play normally, you'll accomplish goals that reward you with cosmetics, including those you saw in single player. For all intents and purposes, the foundation of Legends is basically similar to that of a live service game, despite simply being a multiplayer mode for a single-player focused title. Unlike those live service games, however, Legends doesn't feature any type of microtransactions or battle passes. Everything you can earn in the mode is done so solely through gameplay. It's a well put together experience that's easy to start and get into, even for those who never touch the campaign, who may be very few in number, if they exist at all right now, but the ease of entry is welcomed regardless. I was able to play through all 10 currently available story missions with a friend in only one sitting, and it turned out to be a very fun and rewarding time. There were a ton of instances when our teamwork not only made for an easier experience, but also a really badass one, as a duo of 1 samurai and 1 assassin. The game throws a ton of opportunities for you and your teammate to coordinate attacks and take out 2 or more enemies in one silent swoop. It's super satisfying and feels great to pull off. There's a ton of potential for really entertaining moments, especially for missions that take place in forts with lots of interactive aspects, like watchtowers, grappling hook spots, slack lines, cliffs, tall grass, and houses. Survival missions, though, are a bit more chaotic as the entire team will be racing back and forth between defensive points to successfully fend off waves. Teamwork and general good judgment is really necessary here. Even on bronze difficulty, survival can get pretty hairy, and if your team doesn't manage themselves well and adequately divide their attention between defense points, the game will go south in a heartbeat. It's intense, but also very gratifying. The open-ended approach of how to dispose of enemies that's present in single player is here too, but it's mostly reliant on using different classes with different gear. Even though there are 4 classes to choose from, your success is ultimately decided by just how good of a Ghost of Tsushima player you generally are. You're not forced to have a team composed of any specific classes, so you can hop into missions with 2 or 4 of one class if you so desire. But it all comes down to teamwork and individual skill. Considering the structure of Legends, there's no denying the aspect of repetition, as it's a mode that expects you to do missions over and over again to get the best gear and rank up your characters. But that's how these games always are, and if you're into them, then you already know this by now. You play bronze difficulty story missions, then bronze difficulty survival, then back to silver difficulty story, back to silver survival, etc. until you do all missions on gold, then you repeat the entire process for a different class. Pretty straightforward. As the structure is now, it's hard to be confused by where you're supposed to go, especially when missions give you a minimum and recommended gear level, as well as the max gear level that's rewarded by that mission. In summary, Legends is a really fun time waster. It's a well-made secondary mode that shows a ton of potential to maybe grow into something greater, if Sucker Punch so chooses to. At the moment, however, they don't seem to be aiming to make this a forever game like actual live service titles, but that's totally fine. Not every co-op experience needs to be a FOMO-driven long-term commitment. Even if it stays as is, Legends is not only a great multiplayer experience, it's better than most of those live service games are on day one, sometimes even year one. A lot of effort and time went into this mode, and it's obvious. From the cool new visual overhaul of single-player locations to the way that gear and rewards work, it's clear that Legends was a part of Sucker Punch's vision for a long time, as opposed to a half-assed attempt they threw in for the sake of it to lazily inflate the game's value. Frankly, if you told me back in June before Ghost of Tsushima came out that it would get a really good co-op mode with a dark Japanese fantasy aesthetic like Nioh, and it'd be more functional and investing than the Avengers game, I would have called you a total bullshitter. It sounds like one of those insane fantasy leaks from 4chan or something, but here we are. Ghost of Tsushima continues to grow in ways we don't expect, and Sucker Punch is keeping an eye on what we want. And best of all, they're offering those things for free. I don't think anyone expected post-launch support to be all that substantial, but Sucker Punch is really intent on making their great game even greater. This concludes my thoughts on the Ghost of Tsushima 1.1 update. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you around.